Who won? They're both trainees. I invite both teams to offer and accept points of information and to maintain proper decorum. So without further ado, on the motion of organ donations, I call Prime Minister to open the debate.
Ladies and gentlemen, even the biggest organization that promotes and basically facilitates organ donation, like the Spanish organ transplant program, where it's highly endorsed or highly supported, where they acknowledge an opt-in and opt-out system for organization of being organ donors being the default setting, even then, it was found that only 4% of people who were genuinely involved in it ended up donating, meaning that there was at least 96% of individuals who still did not want to donate, meaning that they still contributed to the organ deficit, meaning that they were still a complicit to the lives that were lost because there was a deficit in these organ supplies. In my speech, I'll tell you, number one, why exactly this is justified, and number two, how do we minimize the organ deficit, essentially telling you why it will work. On these two arguments, I'll basically argue it on several levels. Before that, there is a huge stratification data and model. I suggest opposition listen closely. Number one is that we acknowledge that this will be an extension to the current qualifier system that exists when it comes to getting donations, like when it comes to getting organs. Like for example, now the qualifiers that exist are compatibility, urgency, lifestyle choices, who came first come, first serve, all these things. We think that now this will be an extension to it, whereby you have to be a signatory to allow individuals to take your organs for you to be a receiver of those organs. However, we feel that this particular standard will be the primary qualifier before other forms of qualifiers are taken into account, like urgency, compatibility, etc. Secondly, you are enforced to do, when you choose to donate, your donations cannot go anywhere else other than the pool of organs that the state endorses, meaning that there will be this huge bank that only the state will recognize. No. Thirdly, this will only be implemented when you are dead. That means that when you are alive, you sign up to this, meaning that if you feel that 2 or 3 years down the line you might need an organ, you just need to sign up to it, meaning that the state will definitely take your organ once you are dead, regardless of whether during that lifetime you needed that organ or whether you will end up receiving an organ or not. Lastly is that we don't think this model works in retrospect. Obviously it works here onwards. Basically what happens is that this whole model functions like an insurance company, where you have to create an investment before you get to reap the benefits of a society and the state. Before that, yes?
Would you disqualify individuals who lead unhealthy lifestyle despite them signing up?
No, we wouldn't. Right? We would still allow them because the primary qualifier is that you have to say you are willing to give your organ back to society. After that, then you will take into account what are your lifestyle choices. We don't think lifestyle choices automatically disqualify a person from getting organs, the same principle that exists within status quo. Number one, why do you think this is justified? First off, let's acknowledge that there are people on the ground who already donate voluntarily, devoid of the current policy we're proposing, meaning that we feel that this is a system that acknowledges and appreciates and rewards these individuals generally who do donate, right? Because we don't feel there's enough of a compensation that exists out there for people who generally do donate, not getting enough benefits back. At best, the sort of compensation that we give them is a form of monetary compensation, which we don't think is much. At best, it's minimal. We think that a sort of reward that we should give them back is a guarantee that at least we will you can have the safety net of getting an organ at the end of the day, given that there will be a bigger pool of organs, considering that more people will be a signatory to this contract, given the incentives that we provided. But secondly, we think that people who choose to not, why do we think this justifies people who don't want to give their organs when in fact they want organs back? I would like to think that's a very selfish decision, right? You don't want to give, but you want to take it. Seriously, get a life. We don't think this is something individuals should be allowed to do, because let's consider the harms. At best, the sort of harms that these individuals will go through, given the fact that we're only taking their organs once they're dead, and the harms are minimal. What is it? A scar on a corpse. Seriously, I would like to think that's the least of a concern a corpse has to go through, in comparison to the harms that may exist under their side of the house. The price that these individuals will have to pay without wanting to give their organs back to society when in fact they want to take organs from society is that they cause a life being lost. Because every single individual who chooses to withhold their consent of wanting to give their organs is basically a consent to allow another person to be tortured to life, given the fact that every organ counts to this pool and bank of organs to ensure the sort of lives that are saved. No, Third is the collective moral action that individuals basically have to have, right? It's the same like taxes. Generally what governments tell their people, Shafiq has been said, like usually what governments tell people is that when you are capable in taxes, and because we all have a collective moral responsibility, you have to pay your dues, ensuring that you support and encourage society, ensuring that they are all protected, right? And even then, the sort of like exclusions that we give people to taxes are when they are incapable because they are so poor they are unable. We don't think the standard of incapability exists under our paradigm, because once you are dead, it's not like you can make productive use out of that organ, showing that there is some form of harm or some form of loss or some form of incapability, stating the fact that you cannot give that organ, given the fact that there is no life furthermore to live. Especially when we can prove in status quo, there are some people who even donate their organs and there were no harms, like at best the harms were minimal. What more when you are dead, where we can guarantee there are no harms to individuals giving away these organs. But moreover is the fact there is an organ deficit that people have to like be aware of. It's a zero-sum game. You have to end up prioritizing one party or another. It's either you prioritize this particular person that we want to create imposition on, or the people out there who need the organs but don't have a large enough organ pool to receive from. So at the end of the day, we think that we have a bigger responsibility to cater to those who are living rather than to those who are dead. No. Secondly, how do we minimize organ deficit? Given the fact that now there is a massive incentive for individuals to want to sign up to this current policy that we're giving to them, it's because of the whole idea that their lives are at stake. Because individuals usually always want a safety net. And given the fact that individuals always want reassurance, ensuring that they can live a fully protected life, as to what sort of incentives we give when people sign up to like insurance, why insurance is extremely popular amongst individuals. It's almost rare to see people not sign up to insurance, because we already see a mentality in individuals that the moment they think about their health, it is something so personal to them that they are willing to do anything that it takes. Therefore, we think in our structure, it's a give and take. You get to receive from the pool of organs, you get a guarantee and a safety net, ensuring that we protect your life and the well-being of your organs. At the same time, you give back. That's what we want. But secondly is also when this policy is implemented, even if the person refuses, at least they will get a sort of like negotiation with their family, with families now who are aware of the policy and who do realize the necessity of this policy being signed up to, will start advising their family members, start talking to them, saying like, look, Dad, I think that it's important for you to do this, because what if you're a smoker? And what if 3 years down the lane you need it? I think this is something important. Moreover, I want you to become someone who is morally like aware of what's happening in underground society. And basically, you are a contributor to the productivity and protection of society. At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, when we can ensure that more organs get pumped into the pool of organs, people get organs faster, that's when you close in the gap of organ deficit and you actually save lives, rather than standing on the side that believes in selfish decisions. For all these reasons, we propose.
Speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 21 seconds. We take Prime Minister for her speech to deliver the clash of opposition. We call leader of opposition. Here.
When the lives of society are at stake, the state must reject consequentialist approaches from that side of the house and not commoditize, trivialize, and dictate the values of the lives of their own people. At the point in which states do this, the state has breached their moral mandate for the responsible protection of lives, and not just any protection of lives or numeric protection of lives, because states are acting irresponsibly in that manner. So with that in mind, what are the kinds of alternatives to solving organ scarcity that side of opposition does support? Well, two things. Number one, we agree with continued awareness campaigns, and we think the more accurate characterization to employ is that it has shown efficacy, Mr. Speaker. There's a general trend of uprise in awareness levels. In fact, it's the highest it has ever been within modern history. In Canada, you have 76% of a sign-up rate within the kinds of countries where it has not shown efficacy, where traditionally your societies are extremely conservative, such as Spain, in which case your awareness campaign is not going to get more organs, is to change the moral compass of that society, so your approach is different. But secondly, we agree with giving incentives for organ donation. But you can do things like tax rebates, you can do things such as health benefits that does not have to actively victimize the rights of other individuals within those same systems. We believe they can employ those alternatives. What is the significance of me telling you this? Because the importance is that these alternatives don't have to be the most effective means of addressing their problem. It's just as to show you that as long as alternatives that are viable exist under status quo, the state does not have the prerogative to make blatant breaches of established rights. They have the responsibility to create policies within the boundaries of established rights rights and not remove it. That's why we don't allow people to torture terrorists just because it creates outcomes such as reducing terrorism. You have to respect the boundaries of rights and find solutions within those boundaries. So what kind of organ donation model we do support? We only believe in a needs-based organ donation model, Mr. Speaker, where the ones who are in threat of the most imminent amount of danger, they should be given priority within the organ donation list because they are at the most amount of threat of losing their lives. It is the only version in which we support prioritization. But before I go to my rebuttals, two main things. First, I'm going to directly clash with that collective morality by arguing to you this is a morally arbitrary action that does not quantify the value of lives of individuals. But secondly, I'm going to tell you why healthcare is an inalienable right that the state has no right to derogate from, has no right to deny people from. But before that, three main rebuttals. Number one, let's clarify one thing. What are the things that she told you that did not matter in this debate? Three things. Number one, she wanted to demonize the people who do not want to donate, and they're only considered about scars on their corpses and like afterlife considerations. We will not be the side to defend what are the myriads of motivations behind those decisions, but we will recognize that those decisions are legitimate. In fact, you recognize it as legitimate because you still allow them to opt out of this model nonetheless. You're not banning them. But we say some decisions are extremely legitimate within their considerations. Because if you are a religious person and your religion tells you that your body must be preserved for its body integrity, but then these are the kinds of moral conscience that has a larger impact of harm to their psychological lives, and you have the right to opt out of it. You can't demonize every single person who wants to opt out. But secondly, she said the choice to donate is legitimate and it's good. We absolutely agree, Mr. Speaker. There's no contention there. She didn't have to prove the legitimacy of those choices. But thirdly, she told you lives are being lost. We also say, of course, in fact, on both sides, lives will be lost. The consideration now is how do we determine whose lives are being lost? That side of the house only wanted to protect the people who have previously donated organs. We said that is the wrong yardstick to use by a responsible state. Second rebuttal, let's address the moral inconsistency because Shafiq gave you a very important POI. Because people who conduct unhealthy lifestyles render their organs unusable for people, for other people within the organ donation slate. Yet they get to receive organ donations. People who smoke cigarettes ruin your liver. Obese people cannot donate any organs because of the unusually high amount of fatty cells. They could have prevented those harms as well. Yet under your side, they are still moral because they decided to sign up for organ donations. Your exemption creates moral inconsistency. But lastly, the only thing that they really wanted to prove is that people will sign up more. We have two responses. Number one, it's harmful to operate on a presumption of awareness. Understanding that awareness campaigns are not holistic and perfect, you will create victims of circumstances such as in rural areas where there are less schools, such as in communities where there's less government penetration. There will be individuals who are not aware of those models and are becoming, their lives are at stake, yet you allow them to become victims under those models. We will not take upon that risk. But secondly, even if people don't sign up more, we think it's about the moral compass of the state on the most responsible way we wish to dispense the protection of lives, and that's where our arguments come in. Number one, why is it morally arbitrary for the state to do this on two levels? But before that, yes.
If you think it's a legitimate decision for them to take, why don't you think they must live with the consequences of that decision?
It's a legitimate decision, but it doesn't mean that it removes their inalienable right to live, Mr. Speaker. We think repercussions can be suffered to an extent because they're suffering the health harms of their decisions as it is right now. It doesn't mean that they have to die as a result of smoking a cigarette or as a result of not signing up to those things. Number one, why is it morally arbitrary? Number one, that moral deed does not define your life. We will not argue to you that organ donation is not a good thing and not a moral deed. It is, but it's not a moral deed that defines a person's entire life. Yet the trade-off on the side of government is if you don't make that decision to donate your organs, the trade-off is the loss of your own life. These are people who need heart transplant, kidney transplant, bone marrow transplant. These determine the longevity of their life, or even if they're alive at all. They suffer the inevitable outcome of death if they do not receive this organ. That means their entire lives is defined by one moral decision on whether or not you sign up. But these are individuals who could have been firefighters who saved more amounts of lives than any other individual can comprehend. This could have been teachers who changed the lives of many individuals on the ground. They just lack the Samaritan value or lack the kind of awareness to sign up as organ donors. Yet that side of the house is making a morally arbitrary decision to confine your entire life to that one tick on the paper that says I decided to donate my organs. That does not reflect the kind of extensive value of life that you're trying to preserve on the side of government. But secondly, any definition of anyone's value of life by the state is arbitrary and immoral because your life at that point in time, when you donate it does not reflect your potential value in the future. It doesn't reflect what you can be as a person. Criminals might be rehabilitated, the unemployed might be employed, Mr. Speaker. That side of the house is commodifying the lives of these individuals, which creates a moral hazard that allows the state to say people like who are handicapped and unemployed unemployed, have a lesser value in society, therefore they deserve a lesser amount of rights. That kind of political rhetoric must not exist within society because it discriminates victims of circumstances. Secondly, healthcare. Mr. Speaker, certain rights are entitled to you by virtue of you being a human being, and therefore the state has no right to derogate from them. Few rights are recognized. Right to security and right to healthcare. Why is it inalienable? Because without that as its basic premise, no individual can live. They cannot self-actualize. They cannot perform any other functions in society if they are denied the right to life. That is a mandate and a state protection that they must fulfill in return of the social contract. We surrender our liberties to the state so that they can regulate us only if they give us protection that are inalienable to you as a human being. And that right must be to assist us when we choose to live. Your blatant discrimination that I cannot live my life because I did not sign a piece of paper is a blatant discrimination of that social mandate. No responsible state will make that kind of discrimination. We're very proud to oppose.
Speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 26 seconds. Continue your opposition for her speech. You can take the case for the government side. We will have the time.
It is not a consequentialist approach when the state chooses to punish individuals who are benevolent and altruistic to give their organs away for free, while knowing that in the future when they genuinely need it, the state will prioritize someone else who made a selfish decision under the intention knowing that the society needs their organs at a minimal cost which they will need to pay. We need to recognize that this debate does not happen in a utopia where organ deficits do not exist. This happens in a world where the state is forced to make a moralistic decision which is premised on the selection of one over the other. Because if the state chooses to subsume moral arbitrariness, that means the state is by default punishing individuals for benevolence and altruism, your policy of not selection is by default evil. I have a lot of rebuttals and then I'll look at two primary clashes. Arguments will be integrated. The two primary clashes are why is this a legitimate trade-off and the principle in this debate, and secondly, how will we be able to save more lives in reducing organ deficits? But before that, a lot of rebuttals. They told us that we can run awareness campaigns. Two responses. Awareness campaigns on a logical basis is insufficient. We need a more personalized incentive for that individual. That's why the parallel towards an individual subscribing to an insurance is particularly important, because the individual knows that if I do not subscribe to the system, that means my future longevity will be put at stake. That means that personalized system attacks the hearts and minds of each and every single citizen of that country, even if they are unaware of it. But my second response is, ladies and gentlemen, sit down. We are fine with awareness, right? This debate happens in a world where awareness is simply insufficient. Example, Spain, where only 4% of the population do donate their organs, ladies and gentlemen. In this regard, this debate happens when awareness is insufficient. We are fine with awareness. Sit down. Then they told us, oh, we are fine with tax rebates, but we're not fine with your policy when you select an individual. Let's be clear. Giving tax rebates do not mean that you incentivize the person to change, because money does not save lives. Only when individuals choose to give their organs, ladies and gentlemen, when they have a compelling need that maybe they will need these organs in the future, will they be incentivized to do so. Especially, ladies and gentlemen, when individuals might not be driven by money, but might be driven by their future longevity and health. We think that is critical. But then they told us, but what about individuals who have legitimate decisions and legitimate reasoning? Let's deal with two of the characterizations we give. The first characterization is on individuals who are religious. I have two responses there. Firstly, we think this is a false religious representation. In just the same way how the community of the Jehovah's Witnesses, who previously used this as an exploitative tactic so that they get organs but don't give any in return, ladies and gentlemen. This is the same rhetoric in which the religious communities back then used that they shouldn't get any surgeries to save their lives. Yet the state already compelled them to go through these surgical processes, ladies and gentlemen. We think this is an extreme interpretation of religion. You're only talking about even if that's true, only a small community which you're looking at. But my second response since we said this debate in Western liberal democracies, the state should never place a premium or prioritize religious communities at the expense of society in general. If these individuals genuinely choose to sacrifice themselves, why should society bear the brunt of them, ladies and gentlemen, when society cannot, when a secular person will not get an organ and that person will be prioritized on the list? We think that's unfair. Sit down. But thirdly, even if we can still mitigate that harm, because the religious community can still choose to personally donate their organs with their religious communities to their family members. But the question is, why should they transfer that burden and imposition upon the society at large? We think that is morally unjust. But then the next response is, oh, but it's so important, why don't you ban it? We don't ban it, ladies and gentlemen, because it's premised on an argument of reciprocity. If you don't give, you don't get. We think that's a clear differentiation here. You cannot push that burden on us in this debate. Sit down. But then they say, what about individuals who practice unhealthy practices? That means you already start out on an unequal footing. Two responses. A, that does not happen for individuals who sign up early. Maybe I haven't corrupted my organs, but the point which I sign up early means there's a very high possibility that I will be able to give away my organs. I don't sign up at the very last minute when my organs are already corrupted. That means we still bring in a substantial net benefit. Sit down. But secondly, even if your organs are corrupted, you might be a smoker. Your lungs might not be able to be given away, but you can still give away your kidney. You might still be able to give other parts of your organs, which might not be corrupted. We think that is sufficient. Sit down. But then they say, what about people who live in rural communities who are not aware? Guys, Western liberal democracies, right? If awareness on insurance is widely pervasive, I don't think when it comes to organ donation, especially when we mandate the law, is sufficient. But as a lawyer, as a prospective lawyer, you know, ignorance of the law is not a reason for you to preclude the law to begin with. We think that's morally unjust. Sit down. But then they told us, guys, what about people who execute their responsibilities to moral alternatives, like if they are teachers or firemen? This is why I engage with it. Even individuals who choose to donate their organs freely can also be a teacher, can also be a fireman, could have potentially also discharged their responsibilities to other methods. But in this debate, since we cannot judge the definition of morality, the most accurate way to do so is a two-way system, right? Where it's specific to organ giving, because anyone can give a fireman, anyone can donate in other ways. Sit down. But then you say, there's a moral hazard. What about victims of circumstance? We tell you, ladies and gentlemen, in this particular debate, and this is where I'll move on to my class, right? Oh no, the final part. What about rights who are derogable? This slightly moves to the clash as well, but before that, yes.
If you would only like to give organs to benevolent, altruistic actors under your model, will you deny prisoners the right to healthcare just because they're immoral people?
Okay, keep in mind, this debate operates when there is a deficit and you're forced to select one party over the other. It is different. But then they say, but this is the clash about trade-off, right? They say, rights, what about rights? Rights shouldn't be derogable, like healthcare and insurance. Healthcare insurance might not be a zero-sum game where the state can provide it to a lot of people. But in this debate, it operates in a reality where you're forced to select one party over the other. We think it's legitimate. Under status quo, the default setting is the state is penalizing people who are altruistic because they will always be placed at the back in contrast to a person who's not. We think that is fundamentally unfair. It is untrue for that side to assert that in both sides, lives will be lost. It is untrue because under policy, we can enrich the organ bank. And once we have that organ bank, we told you why this is true. Because we provide insurance, because we family members will compel them to do so. A larger organ bank means that we're able to provide more organs at a shorter period of time. That means people's period of suffering will be minimized, time sensitivity solved. But secondly, the compatibility will also be there. Under status quo, even if we have organs, the organs might not be compatible with that particular person. But once people opt into this model with a larger organ bank, we can solve that compatibility issue here. How do we want to solve this debate, ladies and gentlemen? Keep in mind, these are individuals who are aware of the harms of organ deficit. Individuals who know that society dies because organ deficit, yet they choose to be guilty through omission, taking the active decision to withhold their organ at minimum cost, causing society to die and suffer. I'm unbelievably proud.
Speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 19 seconds.
individual.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for speech in the debate. We'd like to call Deputy Leader of Opposition.
In a situation where you have two individuals that need a liver, and there's only one liver, the liver is not compatible for the person who signed up, and the person who didn't is there needing the liver. That is the side that will be willing to see that person die just because he didn't commit a moral deed by contributing this organ. Because if they are going to give the organ to that person, ladies and gentlemen, we think all the benefits that they talked about cannot stand because they are principally inconsistent with their stance as a government. Ladies and gentlemen, a few things that I want to talk about in my speech. Firstly, three principal questions. Number one, the nature of the choice that these individuals make. Secondly, I'm going to talk about whether or not you can make value judgments on individual life based on their contribution to society. And lastly, I'm going to talk about the POI just now that I brought forward that wasn't sufficiently responded by Sadiq. And then I'm going to go into practical arguments on what's the consequences. But first, let's look at the position. Let's look at a few rebuttals in response to Sadiq's speech. Firstly, let's look at the incentive to donate. Sadiq said that if you don't give an organ, you won't get an organ. And therefore, that will incentivize people to donate. We disagree with that. Because human psyche and the nature in which humans make decisions is for instant gratification, and they are unable, ladies and gentlemen, in most parts, to rationalize what is going to happen in the future. Please sit down. I may think that I might not need an organ in the future, and that's why I don't sign up now, but I might actually need it in the future. That's why even when people know that smoking is dangerous or drinking is dangerous, people make that decision to smoke because they think that they won't get cancer later on, ladies and gentlemen. These are individuals that they are victimizing under that side. Secondly, with regards to religion, and why religious consideration is not important, right? That's what Sadiq said. In liberal democracies, religion can take a back seat. We disagree, and it's highly problematic for them to compartmentalize and prioritize agents within the state, ladies and gentlemen, because religion could be important to the state as well. Religious organization does a lot of social work that benefits the state. Things such as charity, things such as bringing in the homeless, for example, ladies and gentlemen. Things that the state, areas in which the state can't penetrate, these are agents of the state that help them. So you can't say just because you're religious and you're not aligned with the state values, ladies and gentlemen, therefore we can put you, we can just, not care about you, ladies and gentlemen. That's problematic as well. Lastly, the trade-off. He said that, you know what? It's a zero-sum game. We don't have enough organs. That's why we need to make certain sacrifices. It is not similar to individuals that require welfare but don't pay tax. Because they are saying that it's not similar, right? That was the analogy that we used. It is similar, ladies and gentlemen, because the only justification that they provided is that the poor are victims of circumstance and the state cannot make that similar to this situation. Individuals under our paradigm are victims of circumstances too. Sometimes you're born into that particular religion without the ability to opt out by pressure of your community. Sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, you're just not informed. And these are people that will be victimized under their model as well. Before I move on to my arguments, yes?
Sir, if people are so short-sighted, why are insurances so popular amongst people?
If people are so short-sighted, why are insurances so important? It's because the premium that you pay for insurance is not similar to the value of cutting you open and giving up your liver, ladies, or giving up the part of your body. That is why it is easy for people to make those kinds of considerations as compared to things that are painful, ladies and gentlemen. But first, let's look at choice. And because they say that the decision that you make, ladies and gentlemen, justifies a punishment onto you. We have several responses to this. On choice, we think that the nature of the choice you can't tell why these people make these choices. Sometimes the decision not to sign up may not be permanent, i.e. they have the ability to change their minds later. So I'm a Mormon today, I might not be a Mormon later on, but I might die in the process before I convert, ladies and gentlemen, and these people will be victimized. Secondly, they may be coerced into making this decision. Coercion through religion, for example. And it's very difficult that you're born into that family and you live within a conservative and religious community that incapacitate you from making the decision to sign up. Lastly, you may be misinformed on the harms of donating your organ, ladies and gentlemen, and based on that misinformation, you didn't sign up. These people are being victimized by this as well. But they didn't want to talk about the culpability of the state, because sometimes when the state fails to penetrate rural areas or make information accessible to individuals, these individuals don't know the importance of donating that organ, ladies and gentlemen, and you're punishing them as well. Considering that decisions are subjective and you can never quantify them, ladies and gentlemen, we think that it is immoral for the state then to place value judgment on life. Second principal question, my POI. Would you disqualify people who lead unhealthy lifestyle despite them, signing up? They said, when you sign up, you didn't smoke yet. But there are people who sign up when they already started smoking, number one. Secondly, even if they sign up before they smoke and then they smoke later, that is an irresponsible decision as well, because the consequence of your act of smoking and drinking and damaging your liver is another person will die based on that choice. So if you want to punish people based on bad choices or not being moral, ladies and gentlemen, not wanting to contribute to society, you cannot benefit people who live unhealthy lifestyle as well. That's a moral inconsistency on that side, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's look at the most important question. Because Sadiq came and said that it is different from firemen and doctors. Because a fireman may save 100 people and not sign up, and it's different because it must be a one-to-one comparison. In instances where you can quantify, ladies and gentlemen, like a doctor in his lifetime saved 100 people, why are you still not allowing that doctor to be prioritized? If, ladies and gentlemen, your benchmark of who should be prioritized is based on their contribution to society, why are you only making a one-to-one contribution the only benchmark? We think that's principally inconsistent as well. Now let's look at outcomes. Black market, ladies and gentlemen. We think that black market will exist under both sides, but it becomes worse under that side, ladies and gentlemen. Why is this so? Because at least under our side, even when black market exists, the ability for people to hope and the possibility of them to get that organ is still there. Under their side, if you don't sign up, there's no possibility of you getting organs, ladies and gentlemen. And based on that desperation, they will go to the black market and harm themselves. For all of those reasons, based on principal questions alone, we win this debate.
Speakers spoke for 7 minutes and 21 seconds. I think that's really the opposition for speech. To end this substantive debate, for government side, we call government debate. Period.
Imagine if you donated a heart to someone or a kidney, and that person's life was saved. But that person was told that, given that someone else saved your life, do you want to give back? Do you think that, in the future you want to sign up and so that when you die, maybe in turn you can save someone else's life? And that person is selfish enough to say that, no, I don't want 3 stitches on my heart, on my chest. We think these are individuals that these are extreme levels of comfort that they prioritize over extreme levels of harms that they cause to society as a result of the decisions they make. They may argue a lot on principle, but this debate, ladies and gentlemen, given the extreme harms that these individuals cause as a result of their actions, we think that in itself is enough to ride over that. But regardless, let's talk about state responsibility. They said we're being a bit inconsistent because we allow people who make lifestyle choices to also be on that body. We have given this consideration. We already told you it's because these individuals, if they smoke, for instance, ladies and gentlemen, this does not mean that they cannot, even if their lungs are affected, they cannot give their hearts, for instance, they cannot give their kidneys. These individuals still have agency and capacity to be able to contribute as well. Second, in the instance of prisoners, for instance, right? Again, right? Those are other considerations. But when it comes to this specific issue, if this person signs up and donates, that means this person has given his share of, has done his fair share to help out other people, ladies and gentlemen. And we think, therefore, it must be reciprocated as well. The only thing we said, ladies and gentlemen, so even when it comes to people of lifestyle choices, we must understand the point at which they sign up means they want to donate regardless of whether they can, right? That's why we reward these individuals. Then next, ladies and gentlemen, we want to say, oh, well, what about religious people who want to make a legitimate choice? Let's for once assume it's a legitimate choice. We think in the instance, ladies and gentlemen, given the extreme harms you cause and the extreme, all of that, ladies and gentlemen, we still make you, we allow you to make that choice, but we make sure that if you cause other people a lot of harm, we think it's fair for us to say you must also suffer through similar harms before you have the right to cause those harms to other individuals, right? If you want others to suffer, as a result, ladies and gentlemen, we say you must be willing to do the same. And that's something that we think is principally fair. Then they said religion is very important. And that the response was, oh, organizations help out, religious organizations help out from time to time. We're not stopping religious organizations from helping out, right? What we are saying is that religion can exist, that's fine. But the point at which religious practices necessarily harm other individuals, we are okay with taking that out. So, such as wife burning in India, ladies and gentlemen. Those are practices we take out, ladies and gentlemen, as a result of their practices harming other individuals. And we think that's perfectly fine for us to do. Sit down. But we also tell you, ladies and gentlemen, and this is something they said, but, right, oh, people have a right to health care. That's an argument for us. You know why? Because you are taking away other people's right to health care. That means state responsibility is to provide and health care for each and every individual the best way it can. Therefore, even if it means taking away some of your posthumous rights of having a corpse that doesn't have stitches on it, we think that right to healthcare should be prioritized for all individuals on the ground. We think that necessarily means, ladies and gentlemen, because eventually we prioritize more people's lives, and we think that is what will win us this debate. Second, right? Let's talk about whether or not people will necessarily join. Before that, go.
If the benevolent actors do not need that heart transplant right now, but a firefighter who did not sign up needs it absolutely now, how is it not morally arbitrary for your side to forward the latter because somehow he had more moral contributions to society?
Here's the thing, right? We cannot randomly go and say, were you a firefighter, were you a doctor? It's not possible for us on a feasible level to go ahead and calculate those moral calculuses. The point is, even under your model, a random person not donating might mean that a doctor who also contributed a lot to other things will not get a heart under yours. We think that kind of moral arbitration goes both ways. So we think the best way to do it then is to be able to see whether or not in this specific case, were you moral enough to donate to other people's causes, and therefore in this specific case, ladies and gentlemen, do you deserve that heart? We think that is the best way and the most feasible way in order for us to determine that. Sit down. Second, ladies and gentlemen, will people join? The only response they had was, oh, people may not join because, they're short-termists. They prioritize instant gratification. Let's respond to this, right? Number one, they themselves said awareness works. That's their counter model, by the way. If that is really true, then we can solve that solution anyway. But second, that argument works assuming that there is an instant gratification, which is something like smoking. When it comes to not donating your heart, there is no instant gratification to not signing a page, ladies and gentlemen. That essentially means, when the doctor comes and says, if you want a heart, you must sign up to become a donor, and you don't sign the page, there is no instant gratification attached to that. We think that's why, ladies and gentlemen, that happens. In the instance of, we tell you on a more logical case, ladies and gentlemen, right, as opposed to cigarettes where you do have instant gratification, whatever. When it comes to insurance, people do join up. People want their lives to be able to, people want them to have some form of safety net. We think that is a more realistic setting, right? Even when individuals don't sign up to insurance, it's not because they can't. It's not because they don't want to, but because they don't have the money to do so, ladies and gentlemen. In this circumstance, we tell you that when there's a very little harm attached to signing up, people are likely to join. Even when it comes to religion, ladies and gentlemen, we told you, and this is something they never really contested, by the way, that in actuality, there is no such saying in religion that, oh, you cannot donate your heart when you die, right? We think, ladies and gentlemen, this rhetoric was run before as well, when surgeries were initially introduced, and people said, oh, religious people may not go through surgeries. It's not true at all. Religious people are not like random stupid people who don't know that what's good for society, right? We think these individuals will be able to do that. But thirdly, and this is something that we will for sure win this debate on, right? Because we must understand the characterization they said. oh, what if there's a heart and only one person, only one recipient is compatible to that lung? Why will you make that person suffer? Reality isn't unfortunately like that. Reality is there are bunches of recipients, ladies and gentlemen, and very few donors. That means you have to choose between which recipient get those lungs, ladies and gentlemen. And we think in that particular instance, it is okay for us to prioritize, right? We think, ladies and gentlemen, we are so desperate now, and because need-based isn't good enough, people need it similarly. They're all in critical conditions. In that instance, ladies and gentlemen, how do you then best deal with that situation? In status quo, we are so desperate. We actually have considerations such as, oh, do you have a family? Maybe then you should deserve it more. Those are the kinds of extreme things we have to do in status quo because the lack of lungs, etc. available. We think we save more lives because we are the only ones who are capable and provided you any logical solution of ever being able to provide a solution, right? Of ever coming close to solving the problem. The awareness has been tried, it has not been enough, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. We have done this on multiple levels, on Oprah Winfrey shows, whatnot. We've tried all of that. It hasn't been successful enough. We think we are the only ones who have any possibility of saving people's lives.
The government whip for a speech to end the substantive debate for opposition. We call opposition. Here it is.
Mr. Speaker, at the end of this debate, both sides want to solve the problem of organ scarcity, but at the end of it, two questions arise. Number one, regardless of policy, does everyone deserve access to healthcare and the ability to prolong their life? Secondly, can the state use tactics of intimidation in order to get more people to support this structure, i.e. to donate more organs, ladies and gentlemen? Let's be clear that we supported any other alternative, and it wasn't just restricted to tax rebates, as Sunny wanted to assert to you. We supported things like an opt-out policy, like we implied in places like Canada, for example, where organs are full and far between, and we'll juxtapose that as well to things like awareness campaigns. We think that isolated cases of places like Spain with highly conservative Catholic communities is an anomaly in this debate, and we should take that as best case. In my speech, I'll talk to you about two things. One, is healthcare inalienable, or is it premised on moral deeds, even in times of scarcity? Second, which model better raises awareness of organ donation in society? Let's get straight to it. Is healthcare inalienable or premised on moral deeds? The government told you in today's debate that firstly, it's selfish and benevolent. Then, it is wrong for someone to benefit from a system that they do not contribute to. Now, remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is their yardstick, that it's benevolent and selfish. They can't run away from it. Opposition side told you healthcare is universal and we cannot make value judgments on people's lives. The way I will resolve this clash is I'll prove that if we can prove that access to healthcare is inalienable and free from other moral calculations, then we should in fact give everyone organs regardless of whether or not it's signed up. First response. The reason, ladies and gentlemen, the poor get healthcare without paying tax is not because they do not have the capacity to pay tax, but because there is a universality of healthcare, ladies and gentlemen. Because the right to life isn't premised on the ability to pay tax or how much taxes you pay. Otherwise, the rich will always be prioritized over the middle classes, right? It's not about capacity. The access is guaranteed regardless, ladies and gentlemen. When we suffer a food famine or food scarcity, we don't prioritize people who are workers or laborers or anything like that. We go through it as a community, ladies and gentlemen. We give people food stamps, we give food quotas, and etc. We don't accept this example of like, oh, you pay and then you get something back, like insurance, because insurance is a private thing. Those are things that people can get, those are peripheral benefits that people get. We're talking about the duty of the state. The second response we have is that there's no way, ladies and gentlemen, of quantifying moral deeds. I have three levels to this. One, because the decision of opting out is not a permanent and irreversible decision, as is the conception of death, which is irreversible, ladies and gentlemen. For example, I might opt out because I have a personal fear. Yes, albeit an irrational fear. I might not have enough education awareness, or I'm selfish right now, but in the future I might get that awareness and might change my mind. I might make a religious choice. I might be a Mormon or a Hasidic Jew, and I might choose not to opt out, but I might not be a Mormon when in the future, ladies and gentlemen. My girlfriend, I might be dating a girlfriend who's a necrophilia, and she wants to have sex with my body when I'm dead as the way it is, but I might not be dating her when I'm about to die, ladies and gentlemen. So what if, Mr. Speaker, The second level to this is, what if it is incapable for people to bring themselves to donate those organs? Because they told you, oh, because the poor don't have the capacity to pay tax, then they still get healthcare. So if I do not have the capacity, whether it be emotional, whether it be my capacity to override my deep innate religious beliefs, why is that then an invalid choice, ladies and gentlemen? Because if the poor are capable to contribute to tax revenues, then why is it the ability to bring myself to make that decision to donate organs just as irrational as a poor not being able to work or not having the capacity to work? The third response we have is that you cannot calculate, just as you cannot calculate, these choices aren't permanent and absolute, the potential benefit that you can accrue from giving these organs also cannot be juxtaposed, ladies and gentlemen, because the future is always unknown, and we've heard this response before that. The fourth response we have is that the practical benefit, the practical harm of this is that the state is setting a slippery slope because it sets a precedent for future times. Whenever we go through scarcity, the state now makes selective choices as to who it chooses to save. Now, yes, this might sound extreme, ladies and gentlemen, but state policies are in fact based on precedent. The reason why Guantanamo Bay was justified was because during World War II, we rounded up Japanese Americans and put them into concentration camps. So when you allow states to bend and break their moral principles, what now if food scarcity arises? What now if we don't have enough money to put into prisons? Do we forget about prisoners? We don't think so, ladies and gentlemen. This is why we told you. And in conclusion to all this, we told you that when the line is so arbitrary, when it is so vague, ladies and gentlemen, the best principle for the state to take is the principle of neutrality and universality, ladies and gentlemen, because it cannot draw adequate yardsticks in order to judge people's lives or judge who deserves these things. So we think neutrality is always the best way for the state to go. Before I move on to my second clash, yes, Amir.
Sure, regardless of personal reasons, before you can say you have a right to get organs, you need to make sure another person gets the same right. If all you do is suck up a giant pool, how does that not warrant the state to limit your rights?
I think that's largely ignorant of the trends that we've talked to you about in society. We told you that the acquiescence of people to sign up for organ donation is highest now than it has ever been before. We understand there are isolated cases like in countries like Italy or in the Vatican where they're probably against the very idea of organ donation, but we tell you that in countries which are constantly progressing, people are accepting those decisions. But even if, right, this leads me to my second issue. Which model better raises awareness of organ donation in society? The government said, well, since we force everyone and since we're intimidating them with the threat of death, they'll sign up. On op, we tell you that awareness and universality is better, and we're likely to push societies away if you continue to swallow up. Because remember, Mr. Speaker, that the government characterized the people who make or who opt out of organ donation as religious and conservative individuals. So, we understand that most of these individuals won't want organ donation anyway. But what if a Mormon child or a Hasidic Jewish child brings their dying father to a hospital in the United States, and the government actively says no to these individuals? What about a family who brings their dying father, who decided to opt out during his lifetime, to the hospital now, ladies and gentlemen? What you're likely to do is you're likely to send a message to these individuals that the state has made a moral judgment on your father's life or your family member's life. And why is that harmful, ladies and gentlemen? You're likely to push these societies away. We think this is a heavily Marxist kind of policy, ladies and gentlemen. And what happens then? What did Shafiq tell you, right? The reason that Obamacare was brought up in the first place was because so many people did not have access to healthcare. People are likely to overthrow your model anyway. But secondly, what will happen now is that people will form support groups in society and help individuals get organs elsewhere, either be it in Thailand or be it in Myanmar, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't matter. Look at countries, for example, where sex change operations are banned. What do support groups do? They round up individuals who want to have sex change and they send them to countries where these things are available. We think under your model, you scare people, you intimidate people, and you make people angry, and you push them away from once you ever sign up for your campaign. The best way to do this, ladies and gentlemen, is for the state not to make these moral judgments and to ensure healthcare is accessible to all. We're very, very proud to side on the side of life.
I think opposition read for speech to interview for opposition. We got opposition report.
The fact that they call people who signed up for organs as benevolent moral actors and somehow people who don't are not moral, that exactly proves the point of their moral arbitrariness. To displace that point, they continuously told you, Mr. Speaker, but we might discriminate benevolent actors under our model too. But we say exactly that. We don't know who we might discriminate under both models. We don't know what is the state of the morality of these individuals, and we don't know if these individuals deserve it. So why not you decide to make that decision and to pass that moral judgment anyways, as if that yardstick determines the value of their entire lives? That was the question that they refused to answer towards the entire debate. Whereas we will decide who told you, in light of those moral uncertainties, your moral neutrality is the most responsible government stance. We gave you a comparative yardstick, and it was much more fairer than the yardstick they told you. So we told you don't need a moral judgment. Give organs to those who are the most in need. That's fair, because they will suffer the most amount of harm. So this is an objective standard that we can measure, and it's fair towards all individuals who are affected. They didn't want to engage in why there is a better yardstick to determine who needs these organs. Before we go on to a larger comparative, what is the main downfall on that side of the house? They conceded continuously that it is hard to make moral determinations and that decisions are just completely unfeasible. And that's why somehow we should only judge their morality in the context of organ donation. That response would have been fine if the trade-off to making that moral definition is not the actual losses of people's lives. So holistically, your moral decision is indeed a definition of the entire value of their lives, because if they don't receive these organ donations, they might die. So even though the moral decision is within that transaction, the consequences are towards their entire lives, therefore you cannot make that decision. We thought it's highly unfair for you then to use that yardstick, because that's why that yardstick is not reflecting their moral contributions, and you should just do away with it. Two main comparisons. Number one, efficacy on two levels. Number one, they told you, well, at least we solved the problem, Mr. Speaker, and more progression. We told you from the get-go, but it's not the burden of opposition to show you efficacy. We told you as long as alternatives remain viable, it is the burden of the state to continue to expound alternatives within the boundaries of established rights, and there were several blatant rights that you are reaching on that side of the house. They didn't want to justify why outcomes and ends justify the means we can reach any rights just to create any kinds of outcomes. But the second level to this, they denied the zero-sum game, because they say, at least on our side, we get a lot more organs, so more people will be saved. So one, that would be great if you could save a lot of people, but you blanketly condemned to death with a lot of people who didn't sign up, with no consideration as to your state capacity to save them. That is morally abhorrent. But number two, exactly, that is the consequentialist mindset that we told you exists from the get-go. They're doing this to get more organs, and therefore more people will be saved. We told you the state cannot operate on an ends justify the means mindset while they breach rights in the process. So the comparative doesn't become who gets more organs, it's whether or not what does a responsible state do within this process. Do we save more lives, or we dispense protection in a responsible manner, Mr. Speaker? This is why the second clash wins this debate, and it didn't want to engage on the fact of sovereign rights. The only real response we got was from government whip. They say, actually, these bastards surrender their rights because their choice sacrificed the rights of other people. Extremely late physical engagement, guys. But this is not a right that you impose onto society when the state failed to garner the right to dispense with it. And under your model, and I say in my first speech, Mr. Speaker, that means criminals surrender all rights just because they've done immoral actions and they breach the rights of others. But we don't. We don't surrender all rights to criminals because there are certain rights entitled to you by virtue of you being human being. This is why murderers, when they kill people, we still give them the right to life, the right to eat, the right to healthcare, the right to security, Mr. Speaker, because certain rights are entitled to you by the virtue of social mandate of the reciprocal relationship between liberty and rights on this side of the house. This is the right that the state must provide. Acknowledging that there are drawbacks and policies under status quo, the state must do the best that it can to operate within those boundaries and increase their efficacy. And we think they have done that successfully in a lot of states, such as the opt-out policy and such as the awareness campaigns. It may not be perfect, but it doesn't mean that the state can do whatever they want just to save the most amount of lives of people, but in the meantime, breach the right to live for a significant number of victims of circumstances. Those choices by the state are not sovereign and are not legitimate, and we're not willing to defend that on the side of opposition.
I think opposition reply for her speech. To end the debate, we'd like to call government reply. Here.
There are three yardsticks which should be used to judge this debate. 1. Why don't people sign up under status quo? opposition hung their hats on the outliers in this debate. Primarily, we looked at the vast majority of people who intentionally choose to exploit the system which we are currently suffering from. Secondly, the universality of this policy, we will look at it as to why opposition wanted to paint a utopia, not engaging in the real debate. And finally, which policy saves more lives. You can call it whatever you want, a consequentialist approach, but regardless, we think it's principally justified if we're able to save a substantial portion of the community who genuinely need it, reward people who genuinely need it, not punish them on the basis of their altruistic action. First, why don't people sign up? A lot of arguments were premised upon religious groups, especially individuals who were born into this group. How did government interact with this? Government told you 3 things. Number 1, unfortunately, religion is often employed as a veil for exploitation. Because that's when, back then, when Jehovah's Witnesses claimed that they were Jehovah's Witnesses, so that they will be able to get organ donation, so they will be able to evade surgeries, ladies and gentlemen. In reality, there's an extreme interpretation of religion. But more importantly, we told you that this policy is often exploited. Even though the individual is not religious, he intentionally claimed to be religious so they can extract benefits at minimal loss. No response from individuals who have been exploiting the system over and over again. We agree in equality. However, you promote inequity when you give special treatment towards the religious groups here. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, we should not compensate for individuals who choose to make bad decisions based on religion and the status quo, because that is their own will. But at least we're able to mitigate that harm, and that's something which they haven't come back from, because you can still transfer the organs within your own religious community. But why should you force that burden upon society for your own misdeed? We think that's a critical thing which you need to deal with, ladies and gentlemen. Rafiq might run the rhetoric, oh, what about like a child who brings the Mormon father? I can run the same rhetoric. What about a circular child who brings the circular father but does not get that organ? That is abhorrent, especially when your policy exploit that system. Let's forget about awareness, right? If you realize this side did not defend after my responses about awareness. I told you that ignorance of the law is not a legitimate claim for you to push for. More importantly, I also told you to create a massive incentive for the state to run massive awareness campaigns on the ground. And keep in mind, realistically speaking, these are Western liberal democracies, not developing nations where poverty is unbelievably high. You have to deal with it. Why will we win this clash? This is how we break it, right? We will win it because opposition banked their hopes on the outliers in this debate, only wanted to look at the minorities, while we look at the vast majority of people. People who are informed, people who do not fall within the religious minorities, people who know that the benefits of keeping their organs are minimal, but the harms to individuals who don't get it are massive, ladies and gentlemen. It's not like the Guantanamo Bay slippery slope which you want to talk about, because the harms of not getting the organ is maximum, ladies and gentlemen. We think that's why it's there. So we think in this particular instance, since the individual made the active decision to withhold his or her organ, knowing that withholding my organ makes another person suffer, is unconscionable, we think that's why we will win this clash. Second, access to it should be universal. It is a utopia. If we can, we definitely want to give everyone healthcare. Unfortunately, we can't under our policy. So how do we select? Both sides had standards. Even your standards are ambiguous about compatibility. We told you that even a doctor who have donated so much, saved so much lives, might also need it as well, but might not be compatible with the organ which you talked about. Both sides employ arbitrary standards. But at least in the policy, the most fairest and accurate way of doing so is to ensure that the organ, the thing which saves your life or might kill you, is the transaction which we should use. Not compatibility, not anything else, because all of those might happen under both policies, ladies and gentlemen. We think that's why it's particularly different. But the biggest reason why we will win this debate, because we were the ones who showed that we will increase the organ bank. We told you that individuals do care about their foresight, right? That's why they subscribe to insurance plans. Even if they don't, their family members will tell them that they should and they should. And even if they don't, their family members will compel them to do so. You have more organ pool, which means you can save more lives. Time sensitivity will be solved. Compatibility will be solved. At the end of this debate, even if it is a consequentialist approach, if we are able to save more lives, we think that's a principle which we need to stand for.
Please inaugurate the flag, looking all the speakers. We now cross the